The woman who burned my house to the ground walked into my courtroom today, in handcuffs. Her perfume still smelled faintly of gasoline. She thought she'd erased my past, turned my memories to ash. But she forgot one thing. I'm the judge who decides her sentence, and her judgment starts now. Before she arrived, my life was simple, peaceful even. I was a federal prosecutor who just accepted an appointment to the bench. A widowed dad raising a 12-year-old daughter in a quiet neighborhood called Willow Ridge, the kind of place where kids chase sprinklers, and neighbors still waved when they drove by. My mornings started with black coffee and the sound of my daughter's laughter echoing through the kitchen. On weekends we gardened, keeping alive the roses my late wife had planted before cancer took her. That little yard was more than soil and stems. It was memory, stability, and love made visible. For 10 years, our street felt untouched by chaos. Then, one spring afternoon, a white SUV pulled into the empty house next door. Chrome wheels, perfect manicure gripping the steering wheel, and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. That was the day the neighborhood's peace ended, and my nightmare began. Her name was Constance Whitmore, though everyone would soon call her the HOA Queen. Designer clothes, camera in hand, rules no one had heard of. Within 48 hours, she'd posted laminated, community standard signs on mailboxes like commandments from a suburban god. Lawn too tall? Violation. Trash cans visible? Violation. First, we laughed. No one had enforced HOA guidelines in 20 years. But laughter faded when she started handing out fines she printed herself. People paid just to keep her quiet. I refused. The first time she came for me, it was about the color of my front door. Non-compliant blue, she called it. The second time, it was the rose garden my wife left behind. Allergic hazards, she claimed, while pouring something on the soil that smelled like death. I confronted her, warned her to stay off my property. She smiled, snapped a picture, and whispered, "Careful, Judge. Rules apply to everyone." I didn't know it yet, but that smile was a promise, and I was her next target. Within weeks, she turned neighbors into enemies. Anonymous complaints flooded city offices, noise violations, unkempt lawns, imaginary safety hazards. Every letter carried her invisible signature. When I challenged her authority, she accused me of bullying a community volunteer. The police shrugged. Just an HOA dispute, they said. I'd spent 15 years prosecuting organized crime, and somehow this suburban tyrant was untouchable. Then came the night I found her in my yard again, crouched beside the roses. The chemical stench hit first. "I'm handling your pest problem," she chirped. My voice shook. "Those aren't pests. They're my wife's roses." She only smiled. "Then you should have taken better care of them." By morning, the roses were black husks. My daughter cried over them like a funeral. I installed cameras, filed reports, gathered evidence. Nothing changed. Constance had friends in every local office. One evening, she leaned over my fence and said softly, "You think laws protect you, but laws are just words, Judge. Fire, on the other hand, speaks louder." That was the first time I felt real fear. And the last night my daughter slept soundly in that house. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in court cross-examining a fraud defendant when my phone buzzed. 5 missed calls, all from neighbors. Then the text that hollowed me out, "Your house is on fire." I ran out mid-trial, ignoring every rule I'd ever enforced. Smoke rose above the treeline long before I reached our street. Red lights flashed against the thick column of black. Firefighters shouted orders. My daughter stood on Mrs. Lynn's lawn, shaking, covered in ash. She ran into my arms sobbing. "I saw her, Daddy. I saw Miss Whitmore near the house before the fire." The flames devoured everything. Photos, clothes, the roses, even the scent of home. The fire chief's verdict was immediate. Accelerant, deliberate placement, professional work, arson. That night, sitting beside my daughter in a borrowed blanket, I promised her 2 things. We'd rebuild, and whoever did this would never sleep freely again. I already knew who it was. Constance thought she'd silenced me, but all she'd done was hand me the match to ignite something she couldn't extinguish: federal justice. Grief sharpened into focus. I stopped being a victim and started building a case. Every violation notice, every fake signature, every fee she'd collected became evidence. I spent nights tracing payments, filing federal requests, and calling favors. The truth surfaced fast. The HOA didn't legally exist. Constance had forged documents, collected thousands in fake dues, and funneled the money through a shell company tied to her cousin, a man with 2 arson arrests. When I presented my findings to an FBI contact, he didn't hesitate. She burned down a federal judge's house? We're in. Surveillance teams moved quietly. Wiretaps recorded her bragging to a friend about teaching the judge humility. Forensic accountants uncovered stolen funds and falsified mail. Then came the break. A recording of her cousin buying accelerants at a hardware store the day before the fire. The next morning, federal agents surrounded her home. She opened the door still in silk pajamas, smirked and said, "This is a mistake." It wasn't. They found burner phones, falsified HOA ledgers, and the exact chemical compound used in the fire. The Queen of Suburbia had just crowned herself the defendant in a federal case. News spread faster than smoke. HOA president arrested for arson and fraud, headlines everywhere. The same neighbors who once feared her lined the sidewalks cheering as agents led her away. I stayed silent, recused myself from the prosecution, but everyone knew whose hands had built the case. Her trial became a spectacle. She arrived each day pretending the cameras adored her, whispering to reporters about being framed. But evidence doesn't lie. Videos of her cousin entering my house before the fire. Audio of her planning a cleansing burn. Bank records mapping stolen money straight into her accounts. The jury didn't deliberate long. Guilty on all counts. Mail fraud, conspiracy, and arson targeting a federal officer. When the clerk announced the verdict, she turned toward me in the gallery, eyes blazing. "You think you've won?" she hissed. No, justice had. On sentencing day, I took my seat behind the bench. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who torched my life now stood trembling before the man she tried to destroy. "Constance Whitmore," I said, "you didn't just burn a house. You burned trust, community, and innocence. For that, the law offers mercy only in measurement. 15 years. No parole. Restitution to every neighbor she'd extorted." Her knees buckled. The gavel fell. And for the first time since the fire, the air felt clean again. 2 years later, a new house stands where ashes once were. The roses bloom again. Stronger, brighter. My daughter laughs easily now, and the neighbors meet every month. No longer afraid of anyone's clipboard or camera. Constance serves her sentence, folding prison laundry for pennies. Justice didn't erase the scars, but it built something better: courage. If you've ever faced a bully hiding behind rules, remember this: fire destroys, but truth rebuilds. Now tell me, what would you do if someone tried to burn down your world?